not me. But keep in mind, your community does not have to be an ICLEI member to be affected by Agenda 21 ICLEI policies. Around the nation, ICLEI partners with other established organizations like the American Planning Association and the International City County Management Association, or the ICMA. And then there's the Renaissance Planning Group. These groups, and hundreds more like them, work hand in hand with groups like the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the National Governors Association, the National League of Cities, the National Association of County Administrators, and many more that your elected representatives probably belong to. These are the people who are making policy. These are the people who your local elected officials trust to be mainstream. These are the true enemy of freedom in America. That's how these policies quickly spread across the nation as enforced regulations, and here are some of the results of those efforts. Across the nation, state legislatures are passing laws requiring cities and towns to establish comprehensive development plans that include high-density urban development areas, controls on energy and water use, controls on transportation, making it more difficult to drive cars, perhaps forcing acceptance of light rail train and high-speed trains. These laws are now being used as a weapon to force sustainable development at a rapid pace across the nation. Here's some of what you can now expect when these plans are put in place. One of the most popular tools now to control energy use is the energy audit and building review. They establish quotas for electrical use and for heating and cooling pumps and water use. That means that government bureaucrats will come into your home or office building and determine the amount of potential energy and its use that you should have. You will be given a list of recommendations necessary to bring your home into compliance. These may include the need for a new roof, new energy-efficient appliances, new windows, etc. In Oakland, California, the City Council did just these things. And as a result, the cost was an average cost to every single homeowner of at least $35,000 to comply. And if you don't comply, you'll be fined and possibly unable to sell your home until you do. Across the nation, power companies in partnership with government planners are forcing the use of smart meters. These meters contain RFID chips. The technology enables the power company to keep track of how much power you are using and control, regulate, and ration your use of that electricity. They will set the temperatures in your home. If they decide that you're using too much hot water for your showers or your washing machines or too much air conditioning, your electricity will automatically be turned down or even off. Moreover, a future goal is to have all appliances replaced with those containing the same RFID chips, which the smart meter will speak to for more regulations and controls. There is now growing evidence that the smart meters are causing medical problems for some as they are affected by the radiation. Others are experiencing lack of power during peak usage, and of course, as with all things sustainable, energy costs are soaring. Those who protest that such meters are a violation of their private property rights and freedom of choice are told that their only choice is to accept the meters or have no electricity in their home. And it just keeps getting wilder. This is where I wish I had a picture up here to show you this. Under the title of Sustainable Farming, the planners are excited about a new sustainable style of tractor to pull the plows. It's called a team of oxen. Now don't laugh, they're serious. There is a college in Vermont, Green Mountain College, which teaches sustainable farming, and they feature the use of a herd of oxen. Students are paying for an education to learn Davy Crockett's farming techniques. In San Diego, there have been no new docks built in its harbor for 25 years because the docks hide the sun from the plankton underneath. There are now policies being advocated to place taxes on the use of toilet paper, on the number of miles you drive in your car, and on the use of plastic bags. Well, you already got that one, right? Yeah. I talk around the country. Some do, some don't. You know. Washington, D.C. just outright banned them, so yeah. Next on the agenda is to radically abandon the flush toilet. They call it, quote, one of the world's most destructive habits. Shame on you. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has made a donation of $3 million to 8 universities to reinvent the flush toilet. The EPA is now providing funding to NGO groups to run training programs for people to photograph and report neighbors who may be committing crimes against the environment. This summer, you all see here, you hear these things, right? This summer, Obama signed Executive Order 13575 to create the White House Rural Council. The Council is a list of the most aggressive agencies and departments in the U.S. government. It will bring an army of regulators into rural areas to completely control every decision of land use, farming, and development. Farmers who have been feeding America and the world for over 200 years will not be able to make a single decision without permission from a massive paperwork from an army of bureaucrats from over 25 agencies. The result can only be food shortages and higher prices. Welcome to the utopia of sustainable development. This is Big Brother at its worst, and it's planned control enforced by your local leaders and representatives in partnerships with ICLEI, an organization whose vice chairman Harvey Revin said, quote, individual rights will have to take a back seat to the collective. Let me ask you this. Would any of your elected officials admit to enforcing communism in your community? Yes. Of course not. Well, some of them would.
Yeah, here. He wouldn't.
Yeah. But for those who don't, why would they be so eager to be in partnership with an organization which does? The United States is not a global village run by elders who hand down the rules from on high. We are a nation of individuals whose rights are supposed to be protected and guaranteed by the representatives we elect. We demand accountability from them. However, global forces which do not accept the unique American form of government sneak behind the curtain, avoiding controversy and honest debate. The only possible result can be the tyranny of a powerless electorate stripped of their rights and their property and their self-determination. Global warming has been the excuse for the hysteria, but true science is now showing that to be the greatest hoax ever perpetrated on humankind. So there's no need for these dire policies to cut back our carbon footprint by forcing us to lock away land and resources and live in high-density cracker boxes. We all want a clean environment. However, what we're objecting to here is not environmental protection, but the process that is being used in its name. There's nothing local or innocent or normal about it. Again, it starts in an international agenda created by ideological zealots working hand in hand through massive international gatherings sponsored through the United Nations. At those mass meetings, documents are carefully prepared by the signatures of leaders of every nation, including the United States. Once signed, the bureaucracies of our federal government use documents like Agenda 21 as a blueprint for legislation and regulation. And to write that legislation, the bureaucrats work hand in hand with the same NGOs who wrote it in the first place. And then these UN-sanctioned NGOs, such as the Sierra Club and the Nature Conservancy, team up with groups like ICLEI and the American Planning Association to apply pressure to make sure local city councils and county supervisors toe the line. The resulting non-elected boards, councils, and regional governments appointed by an ecoligarchy answerable to no one is the perfect definition of a Soviet, a centrally controlled economy. And I assure you, we cannot restore our unique American republic if our communities are little Soviets. Nor can we protect the environment of if our economy is destroyed and free men are unable to make choices other than survival in a sustainabilist tyranny. The sustainabilists are using our carbon footprint as a measure of our guilt. And one fact is sure. If you have no carbon footprint,
You're dead.
you are dead. Elected officials can no longer play ignorant about the origins of their policies. America is dying while they are denying. It is their elected duty to represent the people and protect them from these piranhas that are devouring our way of life. To save it, you must take action now. And understand that the main battle to stop Agenda 21 and sustainable development is being fought not in Congress, but right here on the local level. We must stand up and protest at every city council and county commissioner meeting, at every planning board and consensus meeting. Fight the creation of non-elected councils, commissions, or boards because they can and they will be used as a weapon against your ability to deal and reason with local government. Above all, refuse federal and state money or new sustainable programs and get rid of the old ones.
Yeah.
You didn't.
And if ICLEI and the American Planning Association and others are running things in your town, throw them out. Stop payment of dues, disband anything that they've built, and start looking for some high-grade tar and feathers. And if your elected officials continue to ignore you while playing footsie with these leading the tyranny, then you must force them out of office. Your survival depends on it. Nameless, faceless bureaucrats wielding power in the back rooms, untouchable and unseen, is not freedom. The sustainabilists now haunt every level of the federal government, our state houses, and our city council chambers. In these dangerous times, it's easy to despair about our nation's future. They have achieved many of their goals, but they have not yet won. Their whole agenda is built on a house of cards that stands only when you are ignorant and compliant. And their arrogance and their impatience to force this policy into place is resulting in a stir of the American people. We are beginning to move the rock of freedom uphill. We are on the threshold of great change because the word is quickly spreading about Agenda 21. After 18 years of issuing warnings about Agenda 21, finally, opposition is being heard. In the past 10 months, the following communities have taken official action to revoke their contracts with ICLEI. It started in January with Carroll County, Maryland, then Amador County, California, then Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, then Edmond, Oklahoma, then Las Cruces, New Mexico, then Spartanburg, South Carolina, then Albemarle County, Virginia, the home of Thomas Jefferson, then Plantation, Florida, then James City County, Virginia, where America basically started with Jamestown, and then Lexington, Virginia. We can now also add Carver, Massachusetts, Pinellas County, Florida, Garland, Texas, Sarasota County, Florida, Abington, Virginia, and most recently, Clallam County, Washington. They've all taken a vital first step in ending Agenda 21 in their community, but it is only a first step. You've just fired a shot across their bow. They're still there, and there's still an awful lot of stuff that needs to be torn down. But there's more. In the Washington State Legislature, my friend Representative Matt Shea is taking steps to establish an anti-Agenda 21 caucus. In Bonner County, Idaho, County Commissioner Cornell Razor is succeeding in establishing a property rights council as an official arm of the county government. It will oversee all legislation coming before the county commission and will determine if it violates private property rights. And that is an idea that is quickly spreading across the nation. Activists in Tennessee are already moving to implement property rights councils in their communities. The state legislature of Wisconsin now has a bill before it to allow local community governments to repeal comprehensive development plans that were forced under the smart growth legislation. It also eliminates the grant program that was set up to finance the smart growth schemes. And finally, Florida's legislature has passed and the governor has signed legislation to repeal smart growth legislation. That means that now the counties are free from state mandates. This is landmark legislation.
Wow.
Revolution against these policies is taking place in every corner of this nation. And in a panic, ICLEI is now rushing to cleanse its website of any mention of the United Nations. Our opponents are trying their best to ridicule us and paint our movement as extremist. It's not working. We are getting stronger every day. For the first time since I started down the road to expose Agenda 21, I believe we will succeed in crushing it.
Good.
You know, recently I watched the film Robin Hood starring Russell Crowe, and I was struck by the similarities between England of the 13th century and today's America. It was a time of serfs who had no rights, no property, and only poverty in their future. It was a time when the king owned everything from land to livestock. And it was a time when tax collectors could literally confiscate everything you had in the name of the king, leaving you with virtually nothing. The people attempted to rise up, demanding that the king give them legal rights from which they could be guaranteed the ability to benefit from the fruits of their labor. The people of the 13th century England knew what they had to do if ever they were going to be free. The slogan under which they organized was, "Rise and rise again until lambs become lions." Today, as we face an ever-growing tyranny by a Congress and a president, as well as elected officials at every level who ignore you, lie to you, and deny their actions that you can plainly see, Americans, for the first time in our history, face the same evil those Englishmen did so long ago. And so today, I appeal to you to take the same resolve. Today, begin the effort to rise up and continue to fight again and again at City Council and County Commissioner meetings. Take their ridicule and return for another fight. Stand up to the self-proclaimed stakeholders and outsider NGOs, the carpetbaggers of our day. Reach out to your neighbors and help them to see the threat that is Agenda 21 and what a threat it is to your freedom. Never give in. Rise and rise again until lambs become lions. Thank you.
I'm worried I'm going to have to do CPR on Nada over here. We have a half an hour for questions, and our usual rules apply. Members have the first opportunity to ask a question. Raise your hands, and when you're called upon, stand up, state your name, and ask your question. After we've gone through the members, we'll open to non-members if there's still time. I'll let you go ahead and run it.
All right, thank you. Yes.
You have some organizations that are infiltrating the schools. What should schools work for you?
Well, the schools are a major weapon in this. The curriculum that is being used in schools today is almost completely sustainable. And if you look through the textbooks, I don't care if it's a math textbook or an English textbook, you will find little vignettes in there in the books that tell you all about the wonders of the Sierra Club and how important it is for such activity, and shouldn't we all join? I mean, in a math book, you know. The American Education Association is an NGO of the UN, and they're one of the leading ones doing it. You have PETA that comes into the classrooms, usually about the second grade, and says, "How many of your parents hunt?" "Well, your parents are murderers." And so that is one of the things that they do. All these groups have access to the classroom. Sierra Club, they all have educational programs. So it's all the usual suspects. I don't have access to them, but they do. Yeah. And I have step-grandchildren who have had to watch Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth 5 times.
Oh dear.
So over and over and over again. Yeah.
that I wonder if you're familiar with that essay that came out in 1968 entitled "The Report from Iron Mountain."
Yeah, I've heard of that, yes.
Yeah.
I can't quote it in verses.
In that, it was purportedly a report on a conference assembled by a committee assembled by President Kennedy to determine a substitute for war as justification for powerful government. And this has later been it's later claimed by many people that it was a work of fiction. But in that essay, or in that actually book, their conclusion was that the most successful substitute for war would be fear of the environment, fear regarding the environment. And that in order to bring what you're talking about, we must emphasize this concern for environment, and that would justify everything else.
Now, the United States is the most unique nation on earth. We are the only nation on earth that was created with the idea that you already had your rights. Your rights are natural, they're God-given, and it was government's job to protect those rights. And I'm reading a biography of Thomas Jefferson right now, and in that section how adamant he was about that. And you can imagine when the Iron Curtain came down and the Soviet Union, quote-unquote, collapsed, the utter horror of these people, that the only superpower left in the world was this crazy, wacky nation who actually believed their people had rights and government should be controlled. And how do we get that? How do we change that? We have to harmonize the United States into the rest of the world. And environmental Armageddon was the thing that worked beautifully. And if you watch, as the Soviet Union came down and all the little commies there spread into the environmental movement. And